For years, a war has raged between the humanoid species blessed by the god of light and the demons of the god of darkness. And after a long and deadly battle, a group of heroes have finally made it to the demon lord's castle to put a stop to this. However, along the way there were several casualties, and right outside the throne room the team is attacked by a demon baddie. Theron tells Kyle and Urza to go on without, and while he handles the demon on his own, so they continue moving, but they both know Theron isn't making it out of that alive. They make their way into the throne room, but all of a sudden Kyle was attacked by several spheres of dark matter from above. He's able to block a few of them, but he can't handle this many, so the mage Urza jumps in front of him to block the shot, but in the process she's completely disintegrated. After Urza's death, the demon lord finally shows himself because he is ready to battle Kyle to the death, and the hero is so enraged that he charges and head first. Without thinking, the demon lord launches more dark matter blasts at Kyle, and luckily he manages to duck behind a pillar to avoid getting hit. But after seeing what the attack did, he's starting to get worried. The attack the demon lord used is called Elimination, an unblockable high-level spell that destroys everything it comes into contact with. As long as the demon lord possesses magic like that, Kyle will never be able to get close enough to land a significant blow, so he has no choice but to do something risky. He thinks you can kill the demon lord by releasing all the energy in his sword's magic gem, but it's too dangerous. He's well aware of the risks, but he has no choice. So if he releases the full power of the sword and charges forward to break through the demon lord's defenses, with the extra boost in power, Kyle is able to stab clean through the demon lord's body and completely destroy him. However, in the process, Kyle sustains severe injuries and completely destroys his sword. He managed to save the world, but in the process he lost everyone he swore to protect in the first place. The demons destroyed his friends, family, and home, so he doesn't think he won. A few moments later, Kyle collapses from his wounds, and he's okay with his impending death because he has nothing left to live for. But suddenly, the demon lord's magic gem returns, and the power inside it is beginning to overload. With the demon lord gone, there is no one to control its power, and if that thing goes out of control, that it could destroy the entire world. Kyle crawls his way over to the gem in an attempt to stop it from exploding, and as soon as he grabs hold of it, he gets caught up in a flash of bright light. Kyle opens his eyes in his childhood bed, confused because this shouldn't be possible. He gets out of bed and walks over to the window, thinking this must be a dream. But sure enough, when he looks outside, he sees his hometown in all its glory. He watched his hometown burn to the ground after a demon attack. Despite the sight bringing tears to his eyes, he still struggles to accept the reality of this situation. Just then, his childhood friend Lise comes into the room looking for Kyle, and as soon as he sees her, he freezes up. Lee notices that Kyle is acting strange, so she asks him if everything is alright, but he doesn't say a word. He still believes all this is just a hallucination, but at this point, he doesn't care. He is simply delighted to see Lise again, so he embraces her as tightly as possible. Lee gets nervous and asks Kyle what he's doing, but Kyle is too focused to respond. She tries to pull away from him, but Kyle doesn't let her go, so they both lose balance and end up falling onto the bed. Now that Kyle is on top of her, the tension is palpable and he is ready to go all the way. But at this point, Kyle and Lise don't have that kind of relationship yet. And after everything he has done, her embarrassment has officially turned to anger. So she pushes him away and punches him hard, flipping him 3 times. Kyle is now writhing in pain on the bed, and Lise yells at him for trying to pull something like that with no warning. She doesn't know what's wrong with him today, and she normally wouldn't be so angry because she likes him too, but she'd appreciate a little heads up next time so she can be emotionally prepared. Lee then storms out of the room, leaving Kyle to think about what he has done. But while Kyle was thinking, he realized that he had actually felt Lisa's punch, and it hurt a lot. If this were a dream, you wouldn't feel pain, so this may be reality. Kyle then gets up to lift the sheets off, and to his surprise, he sees the demon lord's magic gem lying there, so he now knows for certain that this is the real world. He walks over to the mirror to take a proper look at himself, and he realizes he looks a lot younger than he did before. On top of that, he clearly remembers suffering several fatal injuries after the battle with the demon lord, yet now his body is perfectly healthy. Furthermore, his hometown is back to normal and Lise is alive. So he comes to the conclusion that he must have returned to the past somehow, and the only clue he has in regards to the cause is this magic gem. He knows the demon lord's magic power was immense, but even then, a spell that allows you to return to the past should be impossible to create. Just then, Kyle's stomach grows because he hasn't eaten yet, so he heads downstairs to get some food. When he walks into the kitchen, he's surprised to find a full meal laid out for him. and he realizes that Lise must have made it for him before she left. He remembers how Lise would often come over to cook for him since he and his mom never had the time, and he is very grateful for her help. He sits down and pulls out a bowl to taste the food, and he absolutely loves it. It has been years since he has gotten to eat proper food, since on the battlefield he had to survive off calorie rations in the middle of nowhere. A few minutes later, Theron comes downstairs because he's hungry too. But once he sees all the empty plates in front of Kyle, he realizes he was too late. Kyle even finished the entire pot of stew too, and while Theron is complaining about all the food being gone, Kyle thinks about how absurd this whole thing is. Up until a moment ago, the two of them were fighting alongside one another against the Demon Lord, but he ended up sacrificing himself so Kyle could finish their mission. Theron notices Kyle staring at him, so he turns around and asks him if something is wrong. Kyle snaps out of it and says he's alright, but he still doesn't know how far into the past this is, so he asks Theron what year this is. Theron is a little confused since that's an odd question to ask, but he tells Kyle that today is the 24th of May in the year 2823. Kyle can't believe what he just heard, so he asks Theron if he's sure that's today's date, and Theron tells him he is serious. Today happens to be Kyle's birthday, so Theron says he will forgive him for finishing all the food. But he's still starving, so he plans to go get something to eat from Lise, although he's probably going to have to get down on his knees and beg before she'll agree to feed him. Something like this is pretty normal for Theron since there's no such thing as pride when it comes to food for him. But while he's doing that, Kyle stays in the kitchen because he has to put some serious thought into his next move. If he really has returned to the past, then he's going to need to talk to his mom about this. He heads out to the shed and goes down into the library to find his mom, and when he finally spots her, he's happy to see her again. But he can't get the image of her brutal death in the future out of his mind. His mom is surprised to see him because Kyle never comes down into the library at night, but he points out that it's already morning, so she must have spent the entire night reading without realizing it. She apologizes for spending so much time down here, but that's not why Kyle came. He tells her he actually has a question about magic theory and is one of the few archridges in the country. He figured she'd be the best person to ask. His mom says she'll gladly listen to his question, so Kyle asks her if there are any spells in the world that can send a person back in time. Kyle's mom answers saying spells like that do exist, and he is surprised because he has never heard of a time spell before. His mother goes on to explain that not much is known about time magic, and while they know it exists, no one would be able to use it. The reason the spell can't be used is because it requires an unfathomable amount of magic power, so there isn't a mage in the world who could possibly pull it off. And even if the greatest mage in all of history were to attempt this spell with every ounce of magic in their body, they would barely be able to travel a single second back in time. Kyle asks if it would theoretically be possible to travel years back in time with the help of a magic item. And now that his mom thinks about it, using a magic item to store power would make time travel possible. But it would take over 1,000 years to store that much energy, so she doesn't think it would work. Kyle asks her if it'd be possible for someone to use the forbidden rite, but his mother is more concerned about how he knows of that spell in the first place. Kyle makes up an excuse and says he just read about it in a book and he'd never even dream of attempting it. His mom is relieved to hear that, but the reason she was so worried is because the forbidden rite is a spell that allows one to sacrifice life force in exchange for magical power, so it's very dangerous. But even if someone were crazy enough to use it, she still doesn't think it would be possible to use time travel magic effectively. You may need to sacrifice the lives of half of all the humanoids on the continent to pull something like that off, and as far as she knows, there's no one capable of such an atrocity. Besides, there's no catalyst in existence that's capable of storing that much magic power in the first place. But if an artifact like that does exist, then it'd probably be recorded in this book. Kyle's mom flips through the pages of the book, and once she finds what she's looking for, she shows it to Kyle. It's a section about the legendary divine dragon's heart. It is said that the ancient kingdom of Charles was able to prosper for thousands of years thanks to the power stored inside the gem, but eventually the gem's power was depleted, leading the kingdom to ruin. Kyle's mom believes an artifact as powerful as the dragon heart would be able to store enough power to make time travel possible, but it's been missing for over 1,000 years, so it's possible that it's fallen into the hands of the demons. By now, Kyle is starting to piece together what happened, as it's evident that the gem he got from the demon lord must have been the dragon's heart. Kyle's mom thinks it's nice that the two of them are spending time together again because she was worried he has been avoiding her. Kyle apologizes and says he wasn't doing it on purpose, but his mom isn't really mad about it. She's just happy that he came to see her today. And for some reason, she gets the feeling that Kyle is acting a little more mature than usual. Anyway, she remembers Lee saying she'd come over to cook for them today, so she asks Kyle if he wants to go upstairs to eat. But before she leaves, Kyle tells her he actually already ate all the food. And with that single sentence, all the motherly love she felt towards him vanishes for a split second. A moment later, she regains her composure and tells him it's all right since today is his birthday, but she's not going to get him a gift anymore. Talking to his mom was really helpful because Kyle got a lot of useful information from her. But the fact this thing is the divine dragon's heart and that the demon lord most likely pre-programmed the spell into it to send himself back in time. But Kyle still doesn't understand what the demon lord would want to go back in time for. Just then Liz walks up to Kyle, and as soon as he notices her, he begins apologizing for what he did this morning. He tells her he only did it because of a bad nightmare he had, so Liz asks what kind of dream it was. Kyle admits that part of the dream involved her dying, and she now understands why he suddenly hugged her like that. Lee smiles and says she's willing to forgive him since it wasn't his fault. But seeing her smile like that only reminds Kyle of everything he's going to lose in the future. Their village is the closest to the demon territory, so once the invasion begins, they will be the first to suffer the demon's attack. The village ended up being burnt to the ground and Lee was killed in the chaos of it all. So from that moment on, Kyle swore that he would avenge her. But now she's sitting right in front of him, as alive as ever. Lise asks Kyle if something's wrong since he suddenly got all quiet, but he is deep in thought because if he doesn't do something soon, then 3 years from now, he's going to lose everyone he loves again. He refuses to let things in the same way. So no matter what it takes, he swears to himself and he will change the future and save everyone from their cruel fate. I appreciate you viewing my anime recap, Unruly Family. Please let me know what you think about this anime recap by liking, sharing, and commenting, and please subscribe to the channel to help us reach 5,000 subscribers.